should know, and probably if you ever look at some commentaries, that the stories, especially in the Old Testament, they're often very exaggerated, and there's questions as to whether they literally happened, or, for example, when Sodom and Gomorrah are going to get wiped out, there could have been historically a big earthquake and fire at that time, and so that got used with this story to put on top of it the meaning of sinfulness and straying away from God, and then God forgiving and bringing healing. Or it may just be a story to teach that. But in any case, it's a little odd, at least for me, when we hear Abraham not exactly arguing with God, but bargaining with God. Well, if we can find 50 people that are innocent, will you spare the city? And why is God anyway saying, I am going to destroy the city and all the inhabitants? You know, really? That's the God that we worship? Well, again, you know, there was a development in the people in their early faith to a more maturing faith. And like anything that's begun, the rules are strict in order to make sure that they're followed and that everything happens as it should happen. So to have a punishing God, I guess, makes sense in early religion. But as we know, by the time we get to Jesus, after Jesus' death, John is going to say God is simply love. He who lives in love lives in God and God in him. And to me, that's a real maturation of faith. But we have this early story. And what could it possibly mean? Well, God sees the wickedness in the cities, and he has a need to destroy them. In fact, tomorrow he will, in the readings tomorrow. But Abraham keeps trying to say, what if there's just a few? What if there's just a few? What if there's even 10? He bargains down to 10, and apparently couldn't even find 10 people that were innocent and good in the city. That already seems like an incredible exaggeration. But at any rate, that's what happens. And God cannot find the 10 innocent people. And one commentator said, and I like this, it said, this sounds more like us. You know, when we don't like somebody or don't like a group of people, we can start picking away at everything they do, everything they say, even look at the way they look, you know, look at the way they walk away, and we find fault with everything. That seems, the way it's describing God seems like the way we are. And the opposite is true with God, I think, that no matter how sinful we are, he finds us still lovable and always is pouring out his mercy to heal us because God is love. And so thanks be to God, by the time shortly after Jesus, we actually came to that point where we believe in a God who is always loving and always merciful. So then we jump back early in the gospel, before Jesus' death, and some people are following him, and a scribe approaches and says, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." And especially in Matthew, we get Jesus, who is rather stern also. And he says to him, you know, "You will, really? The foxes have dens, the birds have nests. I don't even have a place to lay my head." So he's saying to him, if you want to follow me, there's no guarantees. It's like you're not going to be a part of the army, you're going to be a Marine, the best of the best of the best. And you're going to give up everything. And it's kind of like in the movies when you say, I need 3 people to volunteer. The captain's looking at this group of soldiers and says, I need 3 people to volunteer, and I cannot guarantee you'll live through this. You maybe, even most likely, will die. So if nobody wants to volunteer, I understand. But anyone who wishes to step forward, and everybody steps forward. And that's what Jesus was asking. Come follow me, give everything. So then another person says, one of his disciples, "Lord, let me go first and bury my father." Now this, for Jews and other peoples in that era, that time, that place, to respect your mother and father and especially take care of their burial with deep respect. Even today that's so. I mean, look at our cemeteries. They're beautifully kept, and we take great care not only to bury someone well, but also people go back to put flowers and visit and have a tea party there over the grave and ever. Just respecting that. And Jesus says this instead: follow me and let the dead bury the dead. Yikes. Yikes. Really? That sounds like an awful thing that Jesus would say. Let the dead bury the dead. It sounds insulting. But again, Scripture loves to play with words and play with an image and play with an idea that would provoke us to say, you know, Jesus really is asking everything. He's asking all. He's asking for him and the gospel to be first, no matter what. And to use an example like this, which everybody would follow, they would bury their father and their mother. But by asking him to come before even that, to bury father and mother, is what Jesus is asking. He's asking for all, asking you to give all. So as we read it, I think it's important to kind of translate it so that we don't take it all literally, but at the same time get the meaning. And when we decide in our life, kind of like what I was talking about yesterday, when we go from seeker to disciple and then to apostle, we get it now. We're taking the word in, and now we're going out with that word, going out with that gospel to share that gospel with everyone. Please stand.